Y'all come on in now. Pull up a chair and get comfortable. The fire's warm and the night is long, just right for a story. Some stories live in books. Others get passed down, whispered through the years, like wind moving through the trees. But the best ones never die. They just wait for someone to listen. The quilt had been made in the autumn before the war. Sewn by steady hands in the warmth of the cabin, its stitches pulled tight beneath the soft glow of an oil lamp. The women had gathered in a circle, their voices low, their needles flashing in and out of the fabric, piecing together scraps of cloth worn soft from years of wear, old flour sacks, bits of Sunday dresses, squares cut from a husband's work shirt, stitched together with care. It was meant for warmth, meant for comfort, meant for someone's son, someone's brother, someone's husband, meant to be sent down to the soldiers huddled in the cold camps where the war had swallowed them whole. And so, when it was finished, when the last stitch was tied off and the women ran their hands over it one final time, it was sent away, packed into a wagon with bundles of food and jars of preserves, bound for the battlefield. They never expected to see it again. The war raged on. Seasons passed, marked by empty chairs at supper tables, by letters written and sent, by names whispered in prayer beneath the weight of candlelight. And then one autumn evening, as the sun dipped low beyond the hills, a rider came up the road, his horse moving slow, his coat dusted with the grime of the long journey. He was not a soldier, only a man sent to return what had been left behind. The quilt was folded carefully across the saddle, but it was no longer the same. The fabric, once soft and clean, was torn at the edges, worn thin in places. The stitches, once so carefully placed, had loosened, and in the center, a deep stain, dark, rust-colored, soaking through the layers of cloth. Blood. The women who had sewn it stood in silence as the man slid from the saddle, his hat in his hands, his voice low. He did not know the name of the soldier who had held it last, only that it had been found in the aftermath of battle, draped over a fallen man, as if someone had tried in those final moments to give him warmth. One of the women, Sarah, stepped forward, her hands reaching out, trembling as she ran her fingers over the fabric as if she could recognize, by touch alone, the one who had held it. She did not ask if it had been her husband's, did not ask if it had covered her son, did not ask if, in those last moments, it had been enough. Instead, she pressed the quilt to her chest, bowed her head, and whispered a prayer for the man who had been lost, for the mothers who still waited, for the war to end before there were no more hands left to sew. The others stepped closer, each of them reaching out, their hands pressing against the quilt, their fingers gripping the torn edges, their eyes heavy with knowing. This quilt had been made with love, and it had been carried into death. But it had returned, and so, on that cold autumn night, as the wind moved slow through the hollows, they knelt together, gathering around the blood-stained quilt, and prayed for the ones who would never come home. If this story spoke to you, if you felt the echoes of the past in its words, I invite you to stay a little longer. Like this video, subscribe, and join me as we continue weaving stories of history, home, and the hearts that lived before us. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for being here.